Coming up on Lockdown Horn Frogs, they still won't give love to our guy Sonny Dykes, and I'll see what you're looking forward to in the spring game tonight. That's all coming up next.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. I am your host, Steven Simcox. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe wherever it is you get your podcast. Today, we're going to talk Big 12 coaches and where Sonny Dykes fell in a recent ranking by On3. Spring football games tonight. In segment 2, I'll share some of your thoughts about what you're looking forward to tonight. Honestly, I feel like we talked about spring football from a lot of different angles over the last few weeks. I'm excited to see what they do to kind of finish up spring practice here, see what this new offense looks like, see Chandler Morris under the lights for the first time. But I think I've kind of previewed the open practice or game itself enough that I'm not going to spend just a ton of time sharing all my thoughts on it. I do want to recap some of that Monday, though. It's been really fun to have the team back on the field and back in action and just hear from Sonny Dykes and the coaching staff. I think this is shaping up to be a really exciting year. Obviously, there's a ton of optimism and enthusiasm coming off that national championship game appearance. I came across something on Twitter the other day, On3, which is one of the newer college sports websites. They are really active in recruiting. They did a Big 12 coach power rankings going into the season. And it sounds strange to complain, but Sonny Dykes comes in at number 2. Here's your list. Chris Kleiman at 1, Sonny Dykes at 2, Lance Leipold at 3, Mike Gundy at 4, Gus Malzahn at 5, Kalani Sitake at 6, Matt Campbell at 7, Dave Aranda at 8, Joe McGuire at 9, Steve Sarkisian at 10, Brett Venables at 11, Dana Holgerson at 12, Scott Satterfield at 13, and Neil Brown coming in at last place at number 14. Now, my first thought about this is the Big 12 is in a really interesting space when it comes to coaches, because if you sit down and do a ranking of Big 12 coaches, it's very, very difficult. There's not necessarily just a clear front runner or a going away winner. Like in the SEC, obviously, even though Kirby Smart has done such a fantastic job, maybe some people would bump him above Nick Saban. I think given what Nick Saban has done over such a long period of time, Nick would still be number 1. In the Pac-12, it's a little murkier, but Kyle Whittingham has done a really nice job in that conference, winning conference titles. Chris Kleiman, just won a conference title, right? And so I guess if you're just going off, okay, which coach won a conference title most recently, he would be sitting there at number 1, and he is number 1 at the moment. But there's a lot of coaches like Sonny Dykes, like Lance Leipold, like Dave Aranda, Matt Campbell, who I would consider younger coaches, or at least younger in their career, have been around less time and might not have this really long track record of success, but have had some like flash in the pan amazing seasons. Like Dave Aranda won a Big 12 title, won a Sugar Bowl. Matt Campbell got Iowa State to a Big 12 championship game. Sonny Dykes obviously won a playoff game and got his team to the national championship. And then there's another group of sort of, an older guard that has done a nice job over their career, but might be kind of on the downswing of said career, like Mike Gundy coming at number 4. I think historically, like what Mike Gundy has done in the context of Oklahoma State is pretty amazing, but they're coming off a rough season. They had a lot of turnover in the offseason. A lot of guys go to the portal. Not Matt Campbell. He doesn't fall in this category. Gus Malzahn won a national title or made it to a national title at Auburn and did a really nice job there. And then at UCF has sort of just been okay, not amazing, right? And so it's hard to rank these coaches. But I'll say this. There's one guy on this list that has won a playoff game and has made it to a national title game, and that's Sonny Dykes. And I think given what TCU did last year, it's fair to put Sonny Dykes at number 1. Now, also, I feel like Chris Kleiman and Sonny Dykes are kind of similar. Chris Kleiman was at North Dakota State, which is like the Alabama of the FCS, and he was fantastic there. And he came to K-State and did a really nice job turning things around. but he hasn't been there very long either. He did win a Big 12 championship, which that means something. Sonny Dykes made it to a national championship game. I think that means something. But the knock on Sonny, I feel like, if people are going to have one, is that he hasn't just had this illustrious career. And people think that last season was a fluke. And ultimately, that question is not going to be answered until this year, because the doubters won't be silenced until he puts together another really good season at TCU. And if he can follow up the amazing run that they had last year. But you look at Sonny's career, he did a really great job at La Tech. The situation at Cal was not good. He ultimately got let go. But he went 1-11 his first year. And then the next year they went 7-6, went to a bowl game. And then the next season they were 5-7. And yeah, that was a downward trajectory. But also, like, he took that team from 1 win to 7 wins and even 5 wins, and he produced a really good quarterback in Jared Goff. And then at SMU, the collapses late in the season were sort of what he became known for. But if you look at what SMU has done post-death penalty, it was pretty amazing, because Sonny won 8 to 10 games there basically every season, which is unheard of at SMU in recent memory. Like, Chad Morris had 1 year where he went to a bowl game, and then he parlayed that in the Arkansas job, and obviously we know what a disaster that was. Rhett Lashley got them to a bowl game this year, but they weren't at the top of the American Conference, like playing games that meant something in the American Conference championship race, like Sonny Dykes did while it was there. And he came to TCU and did a great job. I think Sonny is still underrated as a coach in the conference, as a coach in the nation. And again, he's going to have to do this on a more consistent basis. Like, that's the bottom line. To ultimately get the kind of respect that even a guy like Chris Kleiman does, he's going to have to do this year after year. But it's not like the person ahead of him on this list just has this incredible track record at the Power 5 level. Obviously did an amazing job at the FCS level, has done a really nice job turning things around at K-State. But Sonny Dykes, I think he earned that right to be number one. They didn't put him there. Oh, well, it's going to get settled on the field, right? It'll get settled on the field again this season. When we come back, we'll break down some of your thoughts about the spring game tonight. What do you want to see? FanDuel, it's where the game starts. They have a safe and secure app that you can download. They also have a way that you can bet on their website. The bottom line is, if you're looking to kind of get into the sports wagering game, FanDuel is the place to go. NBA playoffs getting underway this weekend. NHL playoffs coming up. MLB in full swing as well. There's plenty of opportunities every night to bet on money lines, do some parlays, have some prop bets going on. You can also take advantage of their no sweat first bet deal if you go to fanduel.com/lockedon. Again, that is fanduel.com/lockedon. You can also just do it from the comfort of your phone on that app. So it's really convenient. There's multiple ways to get involved and to get started. Again, FanDuel, proud sponsor of the Locked On Network and the official betting partner of the NBA. All right, so segment 2, I threw out the question on Wednesday. I said, what are you looking forward to seeing in this spring game and this open practice that's going down at 7 o'clock for TCU football tonight? If you can't make it to the Carter in person, it will be on ESPN+. I would caution you, those broadcasts are usually kind of back and forth, meaning they'll show some of the practice, the game, and then they might interview somebody or have a report from the sidelines. Like, it's not going to be all football for the entire hour, but it does at least give you somewhat of an inside look into what's happening tonight. A lot of new faces for this TCU offense, a lot of similarities on defense, a new system on offense. So a bunch of different ways people go. Tanner McKinney said he really wants to see the running back room and the starters at wide receiver. Yeah, the running back room is fascinating. I know, Tanner, you've been interested in that over the last few weeks. You talked about Cam Cook, the true freshman, potentially being a factor. He won't be there tonight, but the guys that are on the field right now: Trey Sanders, Amani Bailey, Trent Battle, Corey Wren. You have some explosive players. Obviously, Sanders is really kind of the wild card to me. We saw what Amani Bailey could do when he was given the rock at times last season. Really explosive. Definitely someone who can burst through the line and use his speed and athleticism to get to the next level in a hurry. Sanders seems to be more of a bruising back, more of a guy that can bounce off tacklers, get first downs. I think that's a battle that's going to go through the first few weeks of the season. I would be kind of surprised if there's just a clear number one player when they take on Colorado. I imagine they're going to want to see what these guys look like in a game type of situation. And then wide receivers, I think the inside wide receivers are pretty set, honestly. I feel like with JoJo and John Paul Richardson, those are kind of going to be your go-to guys. Major Everhart's also a name we've heard a lot during camp. But I'm definitely curious for these outside receivers like Savion Williams, Jordan Hudson, Blair Conright, Blake Newell, who steps up, because it feels like there hasn't been a ton of clarity at that position. And you're obviously replacing a lot of production with Quentin Johnston moving on to the NFL. So Savion Williams, I mean, he showed flashes last year. It just wasn't super consistent. Maybe with some more opportunities, though, it could come together for him. And I know Blair Conright he's a guy that's kind of a wild card to me, because he had a really good first couple of years at TCU, and then last year sort of faded into the background. But he was somebody that Max Duggan trusted a lot on like third downs early in his career. And so he didn't just suddenly lose that talent. Maybe things are going to come together for him this season. Brian Capers says, I think we're going to be good again. Yeah, that's the hope. I mean, I feel like there's a ton of potential with this team, and the schedule is sort of light at the beginning of the year. At least that's what we think. It's always hard to predict with schedules because you never know who's going to be great and who's not, depending on the season. But I do feel like they're going to be good. I think expectations are high, and they've earned those high expectations by what they did last season. Cedric Robinson said JoJo and the receivers are going to be scary. Yeah, I think the inside receivers and the tight ends, Jared Wiley, I wish they would have gotten him more involved last year. I feel like that's going to be a point of emphasis this year. DeAndre Rogers is also a name that Sonny Dykes has mentioned lately at the tight end spot that could kind of come alive. And then the slot guys are super talented. You have a lot of production from other schools there that are coming in, as well as, what Major Everhart's doing. So I believe Chandler Morris being a more accurate QB, or at least that's kind of the book on him, they're going to exploit their advantages in the middle of the field a lot this season. And that should be something that TCU fans are fired up about, because that's a big deal for the Frogs moving forward. And Jacob Langford said he plans to be there Friday night scouting things out. He plans on catching baseball this weekend too. And then he says, unfortunately, men's tennis has an away match this weekend. They finished the regular season at number 1 UT big match. Yeah, Jacob always keeps me on my toes and makes sure that I know about men's tennis. Men's tennis is rolling. They did drop a match to a non-conference match, weird kind of scheduling thing, but actually played Texas. They played Texas at the indoor tournament this year, beat them. Played Texas outdoors in a non-conference match and lost that. But they take on Texas again tonight, trying to close out conference play and go 5-0. UT number 1 in the nation. TCU was number 1 in the nation for a long time before they dropped that match to the Horns. And then right after that, they'll go straight into the Big 12 tournament, where I'm sure they'll see UT again. And then finally NCAA tournament. So this men's tennis team, you'd love to see them in the Final Four and maybe more. They got the potential to be there playing for a national championship, I think. And David Arditi has done an outstanding job. Again, his teams year in and year out are just fantastic. And baseball takes on UNC Wilmington. We'll wrap up with that next on Lockdown Horned Frogs. So a change in the rotation again for baseball. They gave Chase Hoover a chance on Friday night against Oklahoma State. I guess that was a Thursday night game, but first game of the series, they gave Chase Hoover a chance against Oklahoma State, and he struggled. Gave up 7 runs over a few innings. I think gave up 4 home runs in that game. And so they're going back to Ryan Vanderhei tonight. The rotation will be Ryan Vanderhei, followed by Cole Klecker, and then Cam Brown on Sunday against UNC Wilmington. So I don't know. I mean, obviously you want Ryan to have a good start tonight. I don't think, even if he does, that doesn't tell me a lot. I feel like Ryan Vanderhei has done a really nice job against teams that don't have great lineups or that are just overwhelmed by his stuff. But aside from that opening game against Vandy, he struggled against good lineups this year. But I hope he looks sharp tonight, and they have to figure out this Friday night starter. I mean, you can't go into a regional or weekend series down the stretch with conference championship implications and not have an ace of the staff. And then Cam Brown too. I mean, he's struggled lately. Cole Klecker has been like the one kind of constant on this rotation, which is funny because he didn't even start the year in the weekend rotation, and you definitely wouldn't have predicted that before the season. But to a certain extent, that's just kind of how baseball is. But they need Vanderhei and Brown to figure it out, or they just need to figure out somebody who can take Vanderhei's place on Friday nights, because it's been an adventure all season long. So we'll see how they handle that. Games tonight's at 5, so earlier start than normal. And then games on Saturday and Sunday as well, and a non-conference series against UNC Wilmington. That'll do it for Locked on Horned Frogs. Well, actually, I'm planning on having a bonus episode later today, so keep an eye on that. It is your team every day.